When it comes to team building, we need to be honest with ourselves. It's not all about teams lose. Whoever said it's not whether you win or lose that counts probably lost. There are companies going bankrupt right now as we interact with each other and they have a team. And yet you hear speaker after speaker show up and say, there's no I in team. I didn't know it was a spelling bee. But if you want to play that game, I'll play that game. There's no I in team, but teams lose, but there's two I's in winning. The first I represents independent individual preparation. I've created what I call the 10 commitments, the 10 C's of building a winning team. The first I in winning represents independent individual preparation, a commitment to the first 7 C's. The first C, the first commitment, I call clarity. Commitment number 1, clarity. The first C is clarity. And with my involvement with Chicken Soup for the Soul from day one, I'm often stopped and asked, what's the secret? Can you tell me the secret? And obviously you've read the book or watched this magnificent movie. I want to write another book. There's no secret. It's the law of attraction. Likes attract likes. And it's based on the realization that human beings are musical instruments. Each of us sends out our own unique vibe. We're on our own frequency. And frequency basically means how often are we sending out that vibe. You can usually tell when someone's lying to you. You can tell when someone's sad just by looking into their eyes. You can tell when someone's sincere. And as you're walking around this world of ours, if you have reason to double take someone, there's a reason why you want to double take, and it's because they're on your same frequency. Their vibe matches your vibe. Likes attract likes. So when it comes to defining this first C, this clarity, I need to ask you to ask yourself, who are you really? Not who are we pretending to be, but who are you really? And then we have to ask ourselves the question, do we like ourselves? Before we can like someone else, we have to first like ourselves. Before we can love someone else, we have to first love ourselves. Before we can trust someone else, we have to first trust ourselves. And trusting ourselves means that we know exactly who we are, why we are. And then the deeper question is, what do we deserve? What do we deserve out of life? What do we deserve out of love? What do we deserve out of our relationships? One of the best analogies or best examples I can use to define clarity is when we want to go and purchase ourselves a car. The first question is, do we deserve a brand new car or a used car? And then we have to decide through clarity, what kind of a car do we deserve? Now, I played football for 13 years. I've lost about 41 pounds since I got through playing ball. I'm still a pretty big guy, 6'5", maybe 235, 240 on a good day. I love to drive fast. I deserve a sports car. It's hard for me to find a sports car that I fit in. I remember on a vacation in Hawaii, Maui, I find this exotic sports car place that will rent me a red Ferrari, and we are all tuned into Tom Selleck and the good old days. So I pay my $150. I get in this red Ferrari thinking I'm Magnum PI. The gentleman who rents me the car comes out and says, you want me to pop off the hard coupe top so that it becomes a convertible? I said, yeah. I start up the engine, and as I look out the windscreen, I realize that the windshield only comes up to me right there. I look like Mr. Potato Head. So now I'm driving around Maui with my head kind of crunched down, trying to stay inside the windshield so bugs don't hit me in the face. And I realized that was a bad idea, and I quickly took the car back. After my investigation and a long time coming, I discovered that my sports car would be a Porsche. And then I needed to get really clear about the kind of Porsche that I really wanted to drive, the kind of Porsche that I deserved to drive. And because I think I'm all that in a bag of chips, I decided I needed a fast, awesome sports car, and I chose the model, a 911S Targa. I wanted the turbocharged Porsche with the flared fins, the turbo wing on the back, turbocharged so I could be bad everywhere I went. And you know what was interesting? The second I became clear on what kind of a car I deserved and what kind of a car I dreamed about, suddenly I realized how many other 911S Targas turbocharged with the whale fin on the back, we're actually driving the streets. Isn't that interesting? When we become clear on what we want, on what we deserve, suddenly we realize how many other people are clear on what they deserve, on what they dream about. And that vibe immediately connects us in a frequency that I was unaware of up until that moment in time. Then I decided I needed to become even more clear. What color of a 911S Targa did I need? Did I want? Did I deserve? I wanted a charcoal gray. And suddenly I realized how many other charcoal gray 911S Targas were driving around. A guy at the end of our street even had one. I'm like, where did this come from? What is he selling, drugs or something? I didn't even know he had a Porsche. Now I realize he did because I finally became clear, which created my vibe, which created a frequency that I lived my life on, which connected me with others who also decided they deserved a Porsche. Then I went down and purchased my brand new Porsche 911S Targa, turbocharged with the whale fin on the back. And I remember driving down the street, had the music blaring, I'm thinking I'm all that, and I pull into the left-hand turn lane, and wouldn't you know it? All of a sudden, another car exactly like mine pulls into the left-hand turn lane facing me. It's another charcoal gray 911S Targa, turbocharged with the whale fin on the back. And there was an instantaneous connection, his vibe, my vibe, our frequency. Instantaneous brotherhood. He flashes me his lights. I'm like, whoa, dude, I flash back. He flashes me his headlights again. I flash back. It's like, what's up, dude? Do you realize that exact same thing happens if you decide you deserve a used car? That you deserve a rusted out, maybe a Ford Falcon with a bad shock absorber and a broken muffler, and you pull into that left-hand turn lane and another rusted out Ford Falcon with one bad shock and a busted muffler pulls into the left-hand turn lane right in front of you. And sure, it's still instant brotherhood, still instant sisterhood, but he or she flashes his one headlight. You flash back. What's up, baby? Food stamps. Yeah, welfare. What's it all about? Clarity. Who are you and what do you deserve out of life? Before you can like someone else, you have to first like yourself. Before you can love someone else, you have to first love yourself. Before you can trust someone else, you have to first trust yourself. And trusting yourself brings us to the second C, the second commitment in building a winning team, called character. With clarity, we become all we were born to be, realizing that you'll make a lousy somebody else. Which brings us to the second C, the second commitment I call character. Defined by all, character would be what we do when no one's around. To be a champion athlete, it's what you do when the coach is not around that makes you a champion. To be a champion student, it's what you do when the teacher's not around. To be a champion child is what you do when your parents not around. To be a champion employee, it's what we do when our employers and our leaders are not around that makes us or breaks us, that defines who we really are. It's what we do when no one's around that really defines who we are. I'm reminded of an experience I had flying on Delta Airlines. I fly a couple 100,000 miles a year. I always fly first class. I love Delta Airlines. I need to suck up whenever I can. I always get a window seat in first class. No one bothers me. I don't bother them. It's where I've written a lot of my books, a lot of my songs on the road. I'm flying one day from San Diego, California to Tampa, Florida. It's about a 5.5 hour flight cross country. We are now airborne for about an hour and a half, and I'm on my 16th soda. And I have to use the facilities. Now, in a 757 jet, there are 24 first-class seats. As I said, I'm in the window seat, and I'm minding my own business until I have to use the restroom. So I excuse myself. I go into the restroom, and it dawns on me almost every flight, with the high cost of plane tickets, don't you think they ought to splurge for a little bigger room? Is that too much to ask? And you know the accordion door opening apparatus that we're all faced to figure out. You push it in, it folds inside, and then you actually have to turn sideways and scoot in because you can't fit. Then the lights don't turn on until you actually lock the door. So I slide in, I latch the door lock, the lights flicker on, I turn, and I'm this close to the mirror. And snaking its way down the glass is the grossest, gooeyest, gunkiest stuff you will ever see. or smell. And my automatic gag reflex kicks in. And I started looking around and I noticed there was water splashed from corner to corner, crap all over the floor, used paper towels stashed everywhere. And then it dawned on me. The person who comes in here right after me is going to think I did all this. So I start cleaning it up. I'm like, oh no, you got to be kidding me. I finished what I went in there to do. And as I came out, I was so livid. Now, I've been raised to be a gentleman, so I didn't say anything. But to the best of my ability, I stood there in front of first class until I got eye contact with every one of those other 23 first class passengers. And to the best of my ability, I communicated heart to heart, spirit to spirit, ticked off man to other passenger. Okay, which one of you low budget, good for nothing bums trashed this restroom, trashed this washroom? I wanted to rip their lips off. I was so grossed out. I went back to my row. I said, excuse me. I slid in, sat down on my seat. I started looking out the window, fuming from the inside out. And then it occurred to me, you cannot buy class. Character is what we do when no one's around. And because of the nature of what I do for a living, I'm often invited to play golf on some of the greatest golf courses in the world and attend some of the greatest galas for fundraising opportunities with some of the wealthiest, most powerful, classless human beings on our planet. These men think they're someone that they're not. They think their car or their house or their bank account makes them someone that they're not. Commitment number 2, the second C in building a winning team, is character. And when we have character, it leads to the third C, the third commitment we call confidence. Confidence is the third commitment in building a winning team. The third C in the 10 C's required to develop and become that champion that we all need to be. When you think about confidence, I want you to think about the word cockiness. Confidence is not cockiness. Cockiness is when you jump out of an airplane with no parachute. Confidence is when you take the time to pack your chute so that you know it will open. Confidence comes when we understand that pressure is not something that is naturally there. It's created when you question your own ability. And when you know what you can do, there's no pressure, there's no question. It comes when we understand crisis does not make or break the man or woman. It just reveals the true character within. It comes from the wonderful story, the dramatic story of Winston Churchill at the beginning of World War II. When Nazi Germany is bombing his beloved England, and as the new prime minister, he's forced into an underground bunker. His responsibility is to keep his people fired up so that they never say never. And what does he say through the microphone system from underground? Winston Churchill says, "It is not enough to say I will do my best. We must succeed at doing that which is necessary." Confidence. I had an interesting experience in Beverly Hills. I bought a table at a fundraising gala, invited some of my buddies, and as I walk up confidently to talk to the maitre d' and give her my name, we immediately turn and say to my boys, "Follow me," thinking we're going to the front row. And she says, "Oh, no, Mr. Clark, come with me." And she takes us to the back of the ballroom, puts us in a corner table. There's not even a light over the top of it. And my buddies start flipping me crap. "Oh, yeah, you got some stroke here. Yeah, seats in the front row. Yeah, that a boy, Danny boy." And at first I felt mortified. I felt betrayed because I'd paid the same amount of money for my table as everybody else had paid. And suddenly, the wonderful, the elegant, baritone-voiced, Academy Award-winning actor Gregory Peck was seated at our table. And suddenly I'm like, this is going well. And sure enough, at the beginning and throughout the entire evening in this ballroom, they were introducing all the little 90120 starlet Hollywood stars. And we had Gregory Peck sitting at our table. And after about 30 minutes, a young journalist walks by and she was startled. "Oh my gosh, Mr. Peck, I can't believe you're here. They've never even acknowledged you. No one has introduced you. Don't you feel shafted?" And in his baritone voice, he looks at her and says, "If you have to tell them that you are, then you aren't." I said, "Could you write that on my napkin and sign it, please?" And I still have it in my personal collection. Confidence. I'm so tired of being around cowboys who wear a giant hat and don't even own any cows. We need to be true to ourselves. Know thyself brings confidence. Which brings us to the fourth commitment in building a winning team, the fourth C, which I call consistency. Consistency breeds predictability. And predictability is how we build trust. I can put you in any situation and I can predict how you will operate, how you will think. I know that you understand that when your attitude is right, your abilities will always catch up. I understand, and because I understand, I know you will be consistent. And when we can know that someone is consistent, we can trust them because they're predictable. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And the way we create trust and establish predictability, which is being consistent, is to understand the power of expectations. You see, we don't manage people. We don't manage teams. We manage expectations. And a classic example that I think all of us can relate to is the experience I've had with my children. And let me pick out my 16-year-old daughter. We gave her a 12 midnight curfew. And we understand trust and we understand favors, and that if you build trust and strengthen trust, obviously these magnificent favors and these opportunities will start to reveal themselves because we trust you. Gave our daughter a 12 o'clock midnight curfew. One night she shows up at 12:30. It violated our trust. She was in trouble. We didn't childishly ground her, but the next time she asked, when the next weekend rolled around, for a favor, Dad, they've started the movie late. Can I stay a little later? The answer was obviously no. Second scenario, we gave the same daughter a 12:30 curfew, and she came home that night exactly at 12:30. She did not violate our trust. She built our trust. And the next time she calls and says, we've started the movie late, may I stay a little later and come home later? We explain, oh yeah, the curfew is obviously just about your safety. Most drinking and driving accidents happen between midnight and 1 o'clock when the bars start to close down. So as long as you're off the streets, we trust you. We want you to be safe. Think about it. In each scenario, our daughter came home exactly at the same time, 12:30 a.m. In the first situation, she was in trouble and violated our trust. In the second situation, she strengthened our trust and made us pleased and happy that she actually honored us as her parents. You don't manage people, you manage expectations. And when you manage expectations, and we start setting our own expectations and align them with our leaders' expectations, it's amazing how we become predictable and how we can perform the same on stage as we do off stage, the same at work as we do off work, in consistent style, executing at the highest level because we can. Which brings us to commitment number 5, the fifth C in building a winning team, competitiveness. The fifth C in building a winning team, the fifth commitment, I call competitiveness. You know, in our competitive world, we always think we're competing against others, when in reality, we're just competing against ourselves. If someone asked you, are you tall, short, wide, thin? Says who? Compared to what? If you meet a young lady who has an eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia, and we put her on that proverbial desert island with no access to fashion magazines, no other women on the island whom she would compare herself with, I would venture to say she would never have an eating disorder. She would appreciate herself just the way she is. I think one of the things that holds us back in the competitive world of business and in sports is a perpetuating belief that what we've been in the past makes us who we are today. The best predictor of the future is our past. I completely disagree. What we've been in the past does not make us who we are today as much as what we hope to become in the future makes us who we are today, which distills our understanding of competitiveness down to its most common denominator, which is competitiveness against self. To illustrate, one of my heroes, one of my sports heroes of all time is Bo Jackson. Obviously played for the Oakland Raiders and played professional baseball for the Kansas City Royals. I was in Anaheim, California at the time, and the Kansas City Royals were playing against the Anaheim Angels. I get a good ticket, and I slide into the stadium. I'm such a baseball fan that I also always take my radio to tune into the radio sportscaster doing the play-by-play so that I can get the inside, out-of-sight stats and stories about the players. Who's injured? What's their batting average? Are they in a slump? What's the deal? So I'm sitting in Anaheim Stadium. I'm excited about the game. I have my headphones on and I'm listening to the radio sportscaster do the play-by-play. And in his expose explaining Bo Jackson, he says, Bo Jackson has struck out 9 times in a row. And I'm thinking, this can't be so. This is my hero. Bo knows everything. And all of a sudden the stadium announcer announces Bo Jackson, number 16 for the Kansas City Royals, will be the next batter. And every eye in that stadium focuses in on the opposing team's dugout. And sure enough, this larger-than-life character, Bo Jackson, comes emerging out of the dugout and starts walking up towards home plate like he sat on something hot. And sure enough, on his way up to home plate, I was wondering, what is he going to do? He's struck out 9 times in a row? And if what we've been in the past makes us who we are today, Bo Jackson should have stayed in the dugout. I'm not that good. I quit. Bo don't know. But what we've been in the past does not make us who we are today. What we hope to become in the future makes us who we are today, and Bo Jackson proves it. He digs in. He cocks his bat. And with his eyes, he says to that pitcher, yo, I dare you to put the ball right here. And you know what? The very next pitch, he hit the longest home run I've ever seen. 500-foot home run out of the stadium. I don't even think it's landed yet. When it comes to competitiveness, let's not compete against others. Let's not compare ourselves with others. We'll always find someone bigger, faster, stronger, smarter. What we have to do is commit to being better today than we were yesterday, with the belief that no matter what our past has been, we have a spotless future. Which brings us to commitment number 6, cause. The 6th commitment, called cause, is basically addressed every single time I speak, especially when I tell my story about coming back from my paralysis as a football player. If you will recall, I was paralyzed for about 14 months. 16 doctors told me I would never get any better. And as I started to get better, I was asked to speak. And now that I've recovered, there's an odd question that is often asked me, and I smile every time someone asks it. Hey, Clark, why did you stay paralyzed for so long? And what they're really asking me, it's deeper than they think, is, hey, Clark, if you were going to get better, why did you wait so long? So it's forced me to actually answer in my mind and in my heart, connecting the two of them, why I got better. And that revealed the following. I stayed paralyzed for 14 months because I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself, why should I get better? And once we answer why, figuring out the how-to is pretty simple. Which brings us to the 7th commitment, the 7th C in building a winning team, chemistry. If a chemist tries to mix elements from the periodic table that do not mix, that actually repel one another, in certain circumstances, he or she could actually create an explosion. It could be bad. If you think about sports teams, without slamming the New York Yankees, they are famous for spending huge dollars to attract and pay the best players to try and win that World Series the next season, when in reality, we don't win the World Series with the best players. We can only win the World Series with the right players. If we want to build a dynasty and win year after year, we must have perfect chemistry. As I recovered from my football injury, luckily I had chemistry with a certain nucleus, a small nucleus of close friends. And out of that respect, out of that chemistry, they could get in my face, they could get in my heart and say, Clark, you cannot quit. It's a league rule. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. You're not depressed. There's a giant difference between being depressed and being disappointed. There's a giant difference between being depressed and being discouraged. Come on, Clark, you just need to fire up with another good, clean, pure, powerful, positive dream. And because we had chemistry, I believed them. I trusted them. I knew they weren't just blowing smoke and giving me this rah-rah speech, you can if you think you can. And because I believed them, I was able to recover. Bottom line, when it comes to chemistry, at the end of the day, it's not what you do, it's with whom you do it. Proof. Do you have horses? Have you ever seen a horse? Do you realize when you put a hard-to-catch horse in the same field with an easy-to-catch horse, most of the time you end up with two hard-to-catch horses? In the human experience, when we put a healthy child in the same room with a sick child, most of the time we end up with two sick children. Moral of the story, to be disciplined, healthy, and great, we have to hang around with the disciplined, healthy, and great ones. We owe it to ourselves by the end of the day to go out of our way to make sure we interact with the right people for the right reasons at the right time so we can do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. So let's reiterate. The first I in winning represents independent individual preparation, a commitment to the first 7 C's, the first 7 out of 10 commitments. And you'll recall I've been in Super Bowl locker rooms right before kickoff, and the silent prayer of every athlete is, please don't let me be the weak link. Please don't let me be the wuss. Don't let me let my teammates down. And I guarantee that we will never let our teammates down because we'll never let ourselves down if we follow and subscribe to and religiously live by the first 7 C's in building a winning team. Clarity, character, confidence, consistency, cause, chemistry. Yep. At the end of the day, it's not what you do, but with whom you do it. Which brings me to the second I in winning, interdependent collaboration, which is a commitment to the last 3 C's. Commitment number 8, contribution, giving it everything we've got when less would be sufficient. Back in the 80s, I used to travel America and speak to thousands and thousands of high school teenagers in all 50 states. And I was always intrigued and fairly entertained when I would speak in a small town and have an opportunity to interview a little kid or a teenager from this small town. The conversation was always pretty simple. Do you like it here? He would always say no. Follow-up question, why not? There's nothing to do. Where did we get this convoluted idea that it's our community's responsibility to make our lives exciting? And we adults in the workplace are just as guilty, are we not? Most people hate their jobs. They only look forward to Friday instead of Monday. They think they're paid by the hour when in reality we're paid for the value we bring to that hour. Regardless of the size of the corporation or the organization, there is no value in that building, no value in that organization until someone shows up to work, unlocks the door, and gets their business underway. Yes, at the end of the day, it's never about programs. It's never about technology until it's about people. When we start talking about contribution, the idea is to give more than anyone around us, which inspires everyone to leave us saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again, which obviously builds chemistry and links the first 7 C's of the first I in winning to these last 3 commitments in the second I in winning, meaning interdependent collaboration, which brings me to commitment number 9. The 9th C is cohesion, making everybody around us better so they really do leave saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. It's a belief system that when the water in the lake goes up, all the boats rise together. It's an understanding that there is no C called compromise in building a winning team. Too many people think they have to compromise to make something happen, compromise to create chemistry. No, a compromise is basically built on the belief that we live on a linear plane. So I will give up something of me, and you will give up something of you, and we will meet in the middle as weaker individuals than we were by ourselves? Are you kidding me? We must absolutely subscribe to the Zen Buddhist philosophy that we give 100% of ourselves. And he or she on our team also gives 100% of themselves, which creates an equilateral triangle. And yes, we still meet in the middle, but we meet in a higher middle. That's how we make marriages work. That's how we get along with our significant others. That's how we build a winning team based on these first 9 commitments. When we start talking about cohesion, what we have to do is understand that no matter what anyone else believes, when we believe in each other, magical things happen. Which brings me to the 10th and final C. Commitment number 10 on building a winning team, we call conclusion. We need to focus and finish. There's nothing more insignificant than the halftime score. I've been in way too many games where we're ahead at halftime and we stop playing to win and start playing not to lose, and therefore we lose our momentum. When we understand the 10 C's and especially the 10th commitment called conclusion, we will realize that momentum is only as good as our next play. We'll understand that we can't control or change what happened, but we can control and change what happens next. At some point in our lives, we've got to understand what we've said in the past, that no matter what our past has been, we have a spotless future. That what we've been in the past does not make us who we are today. What we hope to become in the future makes us who we are today. Which reminds me of an experience I had back in 1988, Berrien Springs, Michigan. I just finished speaking at Andrews University, a wonderful, wonderful institution of higher learning. I'm at the Union Building doing a book signing, and these two guys walk by, and I overhear them that Muhammad Ali had been on campus passing out his Islamic literature that day. Being a state Golden Gloves boxing champion and he being my hero, I stopped dead in my tracks. Oh my gosh, Muhammad Ali's on campus. They said, relax, man. He's here every day. He lives here. So when I concluded my responsibilities in the book signing, I said to the guy who brought me onto campus, do you know where Muhammad Ali lives? He goes, yeah. I said, do you own a camera? He goes, yeah. I said, let's go visit him. He said, are you serious? So he and his two buddies and myself get in his car. We pull up to Muhammad's house. It doesn't say no trespassing. It says, welcome, Muhammad Ali Farms. And the gate's open. I said, I'm going to go knock on the door. You come in there? Like, no. So I walk up this long driveway, knock on his door. His wife answers the door. I recognize her from photographs on television. She says, may I help you? I said, yeah. Is Muhammad Ali in? She goes, yeah. May I tell him who's calling? I said, yeah. Dan Clark. She leaves, and about 3 minutes later, this 6'3" tall, 223-pound world champion, icon, hero of mine, massively fills the entire door casing. And Muhammad Ali looks me in the eyes, hands out his giant hand, just holds out his huge hand and gently grabs my hand and says, hey, how you doing? You want to come in? I'm like, yeah, I'm here with 3 other guys. Do you mind if we invite them in? He says, no problem. I said, come on. They're like, are you kidding me? They're diving over bushes. We slide into his living room. For the next 4.5 to 5 hours, we watched his greatest fights on his big screen TV. He fed us, did a little magic. His Parkinson's hadn't set in quite yet, and he was so funny and so articulate and did his own commentary on his fights. And at the end of the day, on cloud 9, I said, Muhammad, do you mind me asking you a question? And he said, not at all. Now feeling like we're pretty good buddies. I said, you're the 3-time world champion. Why did you lose the heavyweight championship twice and have to regain it a 3rd time? He didn't even have to think about it. He said, in boxing, it's the same as in life. When you start looking at yourself as the competition, you lose the competitive advantage that you got that actually put you on top of the pile, that actually won you that world championship in the first place. If you think about the Rocky movies, it was like Rocky 3 or Rocky 19. I can't remember which one. But it's where Rocky Balboa gets defeated. I mean, he just gets pummeled and he's afraid. And what does his manager do? He takes him back into the ghetto. He takes him back into the gym and he says, look into their eyes. They're hungry. You once were that hungry. You once were there, and that's when the amazing song, Eye of the Tiger, starts just swelling underneath the video. And you start getting fired up because what you now know is that once we get back in touch with what it took for us to get on top in the first place, we will be able to conclude. We will be able to implement all 10 C's, all 10 commitments, and realize that once our daily fight begins, we no longer hold the championship. As Muhammad Ali taught all of us, once the fight starts, you no longer hold the title. You have put it up for grabs, and now you must fight to get it back. That means conclusion, which brings us to the conclusion of this discussion. Yes, you were right. It is about team. We know it's about team. The acronym alone suggests together everyone achieves more, TEAM. They don't give Super Bowl rings out one at a time. But the teams that win have the greatest number of individual I players on them. Please don't let me be the weak link. We've got to be the very best we can be before we can actually put our best foot forward and elevate and inspire and lift up our teammates to win. And I guarantee, if we will simply, not easy, if it was easy, everybody would do it. The hard is what makes it great. If we will live and enjoy the benefits of subscribing to these 10 commitments, not only will we build a winning team, but we will create a dynasty that keeps on winning in our professional, sports, and most importantly, in our personal lives.